convention is, I mean, the Democratic convention? Antonio Villaraigosa. I have followed him for years. I have a photograph of him on the front page of the LA Times, sitting with the President of Mexico, applauding the killing of Proposition 187 in California. This was a traitorous act. And the evidence that I have against Antonio Villaraigosa and others who are attempting to subvert our great nation is overwhelming. And yet, the Republican Party won't listen to me. They won't take the evidence. They won't talk about it. They won't come down here. And so I think the American people are going to be thinking about supporting the Tea Party more and more and more. Because the Republican leadership is falling down on the job. Can you tell us what you think about all of this? Border security, everything last time?
Well, it's kind of an eye-opener for me because I have no idea about these little sensors and what they can do for border security. I mean, I'm here to learn. Great turnout. I'm hungry too. And the smell is very good. I'm hungry.
Well, that system is very impressive. The sonic barrier can detect underground burglary. It can detect the flying tunnels. Yeah, you know, the tunnels that we had going on, what was it, 240 of them or something?
Tunnels that they used to bring drugs across the border? I hope so too.
So how's your campaign going?
Going good, very strong. Just can't wait to take a message to Washington.
You know, you would be a great person to have in Washington. You have a unique understanding of the situation that's going on in your district. And I know for myself, when you will be best in the world.
Thank you, appreciate it.
Do you have anything you'd like to say to the audience?
Visit my website and support me. www.gabbyforcongress.org. Money. We need money.
Okay, Gabby needs some money. We'll talk with Gabby a little bit later. Thank you much.
Was born in Los Angeles, raised in Hollywood, went to Hollywood High. One of my best friends in high school was David Nelson.
Oh, wow.
I used to go over to the Ozzie and Harriet house. You know, it was just like it was on TV. And I had a lot of friends in Hollywood. But I'll tell you, back then, in the 40s and early 50s, Hollywood was the Bible Belt.
It was. Yeah.
Now it's sex, drugs, and rock and roll. And the Tijuana Brass. But Los Angeles and California have changed a lot. It was 10 years before I came out here. 10 years of fighting on the front lines full-time, watching people like, you know, I want to tell you something about the Republican Party. Then I want to introduce Rick Olton. You know who the chairman of the California Democratic Convention is? Anybody here know? His name is Antonio Villaraigosa.
Oh, yeah, okay.
I have followed him for years.
Surprise.
When we passed Proposition 187, kind of like SB 1070, the man here had a lot to do with it, it passed by 60% of the vote of the people. And, of course, MALDEF and the rest sued to stop it. And it was before the courts. And it was going up the ladder. And Governor Gray Davis made a deal with the President of Mexico to kill it, to stop it from going into the Court of Appeals. He held a mediation and only invited one side. I was there. I was involved with it totally. He lied. It was illegal what he did. But the day that he announced it, Antonio Villaraigosa was in Mexico City. How do I know that? The next day, his photograph was on the front page of the LA Times, sitting with the President of Mexico applauding the killing of Proposition 187, which was done illegally. So who has the Democratic Party named as chairman of their convention? An out-and-out, flat-out traitor who subverted our laws in California. Now, will the Republican Party say anything about that?
Why are they such wimps?
No. They're spineless. They sit and watch us being overrun and talk in platitudes. over and over again. I've been at this now 20 years, and I've documented it as I came down to the border to document it. And each year it gets worse, and in California, the Republican Party walked off and left that state to the Democrats. They could have beat them easily. Why are they doing that? Why are they collapsing? Why are they folding? Why do they refuse to resist? That's the question the Tea Party is going to have to answer, it seems to me. Now, when I came out here 10 years ago, there was one guy driving a van with my electronic equipment from my little operation in California. And he helped me move in to what was then a rental place. And here we are down at a ranch. Now, can you believe this? I move out here to take up the border issue, and I end up owning one of the only ranches on the border. Now, can you tell me how that happened? Okay? I mean, somehow there's a guiding hand. How could that happen? Isn't that weird? But it happened. And a lot of other things have happened that have been, I think, an indication that somebody thinks we're doing something right at a higher level than the people in Washington, D.C. So without further ado, I'd like Rick Oltmann to come up and say a few words. Rick is in California battling the issue there, has helped out here in Arizona, and I think we must listen carefully to what he has to say. Rick Oltmann.
Thank you, Glenn. The thermostat in my car says that it's 124 degrees.
Oh.
I don't know if it's that hot. It's over 100. I can't think of any place I'd rather be today than here, on Glenn's Ranch, next to this border, talking to patriots.
Closer to the mic.
Glenn is way too modest. In the battle for illegal immigration, which we've been fighting for 20 years, many people have done a little, some have done a little more than a little. There's a few that have done a lot. Nobody's done more than Glenn Spencer. Glenn has put himself, his reputation, his money, everything that he has on the line, and technology to continue to try to fight this battle. And what this country owes Glenn Spencer can't be calculated and can't ever be repaid. But Glenn's a hero of mine, and I want you to give him a round of applause.
Yeah, yeah.
So I'm going to quickly give you a brief history of the illegal immigration in the country and where we are today. 20 years ago, the illegal immigration issue began as a political issue in California. 1992, late 91, actually 1990, I was running a congressional campaign against Barbara Boxer, and some guy approached me and said, "You ought to talk about illegal immigration." And I said, "Well, who cares about it?" "Oh, it's an important issue," he said. And I said, "I didn't say it wasn't important. I said, who cares about it as an issue?" And he went away. 2 years later, in 92, he came back, and by then, we were seeing the effects in California all over the place. One woman who Glenn knew intimately, who saw the effects right after the 86 amnesty, was Muriel Watson, the widow of a Border Patrol officer who used to go down on Dairy Mart Road in San Diego with a bunch of cars aimed south and turn on her lights so that the Border Patrol could see all the illegal aliens that were coming across from Tijuana.
Wow.
And it was called Light Up the Border. And that was, Muriel, to my knowledge, was the first activist to do anything like that. And she passed away a couple of months ago. In 1992, we were starting to see the problems in California. We were seeing it in the hospitals, we were seeing it in the schools. And the issue got started, Glenn got started in Southern California, Doug and Nancy Thompson got started in Orange County. I got started in Northern California in the San Francisco Bay Area. And what we started to do was to highlight the difficulty that illegal immigration was causing, the problems that it was causing, the fact that they were getting through. I spent a lot of time on the border, we took a lot of pictures, and about 3 years ago I spoke to a group of Minutemen, Golden Gate Minutemen in Alameda, California. There's about 200 of them in the audience, and I said, you know, back in 92, we thought if we just showed that the border was open and that people were sneaking across and the trouble it was doing, we thought that the government would actually fix the problem. Well, a laugh went up in that room, and you just thought I was the biggest ass in Alameda. And I let him laugh. And I said, I know that sounds naive now, but we believed that then. We all believed it, didn't we? We got started, we got legislation passed in the California legislature. Dick Mountjoy, was the Russell Pierce of his time in the California legislature. We got a lot of bills passed. We got the California driver's license bill passed to keep illegal aliens from getting driver's license. A lot of it didn't get passed. Dick Mountjoy teamed up with Al Nelson, the commissioner for INS under Ronald Reagan, Bill King, former chief patrol agent, Peter Nunez, a former U.S. attorney from San Diego, and Hal Ezell, the former Western Division chief, and they put together the Save Our State Initiative, which came to be known as Proposition 187. And we all worked hard on it, and we all gathered signatures for it, and I want you to know everybody was against us. Not just the Democrats, not just the media, the Republicans, everybody was against us. And we continued to gather signatures, and we continued to try. And then a funny thing happened on the way to the ballot box. Governor Pete Wilson was trailing his opponent by 24 points in the polls, Kathleen Brown, sister of a former governor, now the current governor, Jerry Brown, daughter of a popular governor, Pat Brown. And Pete Wilson decided that he needed the illegal immigration issue to win the election, and he's the one that started the bonsai charges across the border commercials that you may recall seeing. Pete Wilson rallied 24 points after he endorsed Proposition 187 and crushed Kathleen Brown. And as Glenn said, we won with almost 60% of the vote. And this was in 1994, and everybody was against us. This showed the wisdom of the California people, of the American people at that time. However, when we passed Proposition 187, we were told, look, illegal immigration is not that big a problem. We don't have to do anything about it. Went to Washington in 1995. After we won this tremendous victory in 1994, I was a member of the California Republican Party. I tried to get the California Republican Party to then endorse immigration enforcement as an issue, and they completely turned their back on us. After winning a fantastic election where Pete Wilson got reelected, the California Republican Party didn't want anything to do with us. Just before the election in '94, it was in December of '94, after we had won the election, I was at a meet and greet at San Francisco International Airport for Senator Phil Gramm from Texas. He was talking about being the next presidential candidate, right? He walks right over to me and another fellow. He goes, y'all did a great job in that Proposition 187. And I said, I'm going to be in Washington next month, January of '95. Can we come by and talk about it? You bet. You just make an appointment. Couldn't get past the front gate at Phil Gramm's office. Republicans turned their back on us. It's not that big a problem, we were told. Republicans won the election in '94. They won the House. Some of the Republicans from California will tell you they won their congressional races because they endorsed Proposition 187, and they won. 1996, Congress passed the Illegal Immigration Reform and Immigrant Responsibility Act, the 1996 IRCA, which Bill Clinton signed into law. It was watered down, but it was better than nothing. And still the people were saying, look, illegal immigration is not that big a problem. We don't need to do anything about it. We continued to work. I first came to Arizona in 1998. I went out to Douglas and I met with rancher Roger Barnett. I'm the one that got 2020 down here to do the piece where, if you remember, Chris Wallace is up on Larry Vance's roof looking at all the illegal aliens coming across in Douglas. I'm the one that set that up with 2020 at ABC. And yet we were being told it's not that big a problem. We don't need to do anything about it. By the time 2000 rolled around, Pat Buchanan was the Reform Party's candidate for president, you may recall. He's the only guy that was talking about enforcing the border. I actually ran a press conference for Pat in Douglas where he came down to tell us what he was going to do. By 2000, we were being told, it's such a big problem, we can't do anything about it.
Yeah.
Okay? This is what the people in power have been saying all along. Now, Glenn was right about Proposition 187. It was illegally euthanized by Gray Davis, who was subsequently recalled because of that. A lot of people don't understand that. I talk to talk show hosts on the East Coast sometime, radio talk show hosts. I go, well, you all had power outages and brownouts in California. I said, I don't remember any of that. I remember Gray Davis signed a bill allowing illegal aliens to get a driver's license in California, and he euthanized Proposition 187, and that's what got him ousted. And if you don't believe that, who was elected when Gray Davis was kicked out? Arnold Schwarzenegger. And Schwarzenegger and the Democrats who control Sacramento repealed the driver's license law. Don't tell me it didn't mean anything to Californians. They wouldn't have done it if it hadn't. Now, when we got started back there, it's not like today where we have the internet. Mike King is over here with his iPad and 3G. He's taking pictures and posting them to the Facebook page. When we got started 20 years ago, we had the fax tree. We were faxing each other stuff or mailing each other clippings. By '92, I think I had an email account. I think I had an AOL account But you couldn't get on the internet with America Online, and I could email people, but I didn't know anybody with an email address. I ran my 1994 Prop 187 campaign with a 386 computer with 12 megabytes of RAM. This was in the days before they had a fan on the processor. The processor would get so hot, I used to take a flat bottom spoon and put it in the freezer, and then I would open up the case and lay the spoon up against the processor so that the thing wouldn't lock up on me. How far we've come. Now, let's see here, skipping ahead. Now, in 2002, Glenn decided to move from Southern California to Cochise County. And he needed somebody to drive the truck, so Glenn drove the personal items, and I drove the important stuff. I drove his technology over here. We were talking on the cell phone when I think, almost exactly as we were crossing the Cochise County line, they announced that there was going to be a new...
Ziegler resigned.
Ziegler had resigned as the head of the INS at that point. And I think we were listening to the radio, and that happened, I mean, like a movie minute as we were entering Cochise County on the final leg of our trip. He's been down here, he's showing what's going on. All of this that I've described to you is what I call the education phase of the illegal immigration issue. We were educating Americans. We were talking about the problem, predicting what the problem would do, warning people, don't let this happen. I mean, we in the border states knew what was going on. California, Arizona, Texas, we knew what was going on. We were warning other people in the rest of the country, don't let this happen. That was the education phase of what was going on. 2004, we had Proposition 200 in Arizona. How many people voted for Proposition 200 in 2004? Okay. I ran the campaign that got that thing qualified. And we won with like 56% of the vote. And just to mention the Hispanic vote that you're hearing mentioned on the news all the time, more Hispanic American Arizonans voted for Proposition 200 than voted for George Bush the same day. So don't buy this stuff that it's about the Hispanic vote. That was in November of 2004. In April of 2005, the Minutemen were on the border. And I think at that point we started to transition. We reached a tipping point with the media at that point, who continued to ignore us and make fun of us and everything. When the media came down to try to find the Minutemen misbehaving down here on the border, what they found was the average age was 55 years old, and the average activity was sitting in a lawn chair looking at the border with binoculars and talking into a radio. Yeah. They did find some ACLU types that were smoking dope, but
yeah, right, sure.
In any case, I think we started to transition at that point from the education phase into the policy phase. More and more cities. There was a great internal migration of illegal aliens in the country in the late 90s, where they left the border states and they went into the Midwest, and they filled up the meat packing plants and the furniture plants in the Carolinas, and started to do all these other jobs under Bill Clinton, who did a terrible job. He wasn't interested in securing the border one bit. Now we're in the Bush administration doing a terrible job. He didn't want to secure the border one bit. But the problem started to get out there and everybody started to see it. And I think at that point, that's when the pressure began on politicians to come up with some answers. And we transitioned, I believe, from the education phase into the policy phase. And with Prop 200, then the Minutemen, we reached a tipping point with the media. Then James Sensenbrenner in the House came up with a bad illegal immigration enforcement bill, which wasn't going to go anywhere in the Senate, and it didn't. However, it sparked a bunch of illegal alien Mexicans marching in the streets of our cities, and the news media covered that. And I think what happened at that point, we reached a tipping point with the American public. Because not only were they seeing it on TV, they were also seeing it in their own community. So that's about 2006. From about 2004 to 2006, I think we entered the policy phase, and that, not coincidentally, is a time where activists like myself and Glenn and all the other activists we know, we stopped being asked to show up on TV shows to talk about illegal immigration. They didn't need us anymore because they had policymakers that were willing to talk about it. They weren't doing anything about it, but they were willing to talk about it, and that sort of froze us out from being interviewed. I've been on every Fox News show except for O'Reilly and Greta Van Susteren. Glenn's been on O'Reilly and every other one. Lou Dobbs. I mean, I've done them all, but not lately because they don't need activists anymore. Now they want to talk to politicians who are still talking. All right. After 2004, and Proposition 200 passed, that was during the 2004 campaign is where I met State Senator Russell Pierce in Phoenix. Russell started pouring out the immigration legislation at that point. A lot of it landed on Napolitano's desk, and a lot of it she vetoed. I think she signed a couple of bills. Then she went to the Obama administration in 2008, and Jan Brewer became the governor. Russell, along with Chris Kobach, who is now the Secretary of State for Kansas, wrote SB 1070. And the truth is, the inside talk was there was some doubt as to whether or not Brewer was going to sign that bill. And then what happened? Rob Krentz was murdered in March 2010. There's no way she couldn't sign that bill. And then an astounding thing happened. If you look at the polls, if you look at Jan Brewer's polls in March of 2010, she trailed Terry Goddard in the governor's race 24 points by the same exact margin that Pete Wilson trailed Kathleen Brown in California. And I predicted, she signs that bill, she wins this election. There wasn't a politician in Arizona better known than Terry Goddard, two-term mayor of Phoenix, the biggest media market and the biggest bunch of votes in the state, two-term secretary, attorney general. Okay, state won 2 statewide elections with landslide elections. Jan Brewer signs SB 1070, and she beats Terry Goddard by 24 points.
Woohoo!
This is the power of immigration enforcement legislation. In California, we had a number of people that were running on the fact that I support the Arizona bill, meaning SB 1070. Tim, I can't think of his last name, in California Assembly. I can't think of his last name. He had $50,000. He defeated 2 Republicans in a primary who spent $500,000. The way he did it was he sent men and women up to the doors of everybody in his precinct that he could reach, and he said, Tim is pro-life and he supports the Arizona law. And people said, you support the Arizona law? Give me a sign and put it in my yard.
Exactly.
Alan Mansour won the election in Fontana, California, the old steel city of Fontana, California. They elected their first black woman mayor of Fontana, because she stood up and said, I support the Arizona law. And she was attacked in the press, and they showed up at city council meetings, so she was a city councilwoman, and attacked her. There were 7 people in that race. She had 6 opponents. She won with 55% of the vote. And the rest of it was divided up amongst the others that ran against her. This is the power of supporting immigration law enforcement. Chris Kobach won Secretary of State in Kansas, and everybody knew who Chris Kobach was. So we know that the American people want enforcement. Why doesn't the federal government want enforcement? And this will lead me to the last phase, the phase I think we're moving in right now. The federal government doesn't want enforcement because they want these people here. Why? Because the business community wants these people here. And you've heard on the news ever since the Supreme Court ruled on SB 1070 that this is about the Hispanic vote. It's about the Hispanic vote. Folks, it ain't even about the Hispanic vote. It has never, ever been about the Hispanic vote. And while the Hispanic vote may figure into elections in maybe 4 to 6 years, that isn't what it's about. It is about more customers for the Chamber of Commerce to sell to, because they've got to replace us, the baby boomer consumers. That's what it's about.
Yes.
Of course, it's about giving them jobs because they have to have a paycheck to buy stuff with. But that's what this is about. If you look at this Hispanic vote thing, it's nonsense. What state's got the largest Hispanic vote in the country? Anybody? California.
Yeah.
Texas is number 2. California. Every Mexican in California can vote for Mitt Romney. California's still going to go to Obama.
Yeah.
Okay? Number 2 is Texas. Every Hispanic in Texas can vote for Obama. Texas is still going to go to Romney. New York is, I think, number 3. Regardless of how the Hispanics vote in New York, New York is going to go to Obama. This is a nonsensical argument.
Yeah.
Everything I've ever seen is that Hispanic Americans, and let's hope we're talking about Americans if we're talking about voting, they vote the way the rest of America does. They vote their pocketbook. Now in California, Hispanic American citizens earn incomes at the poverty level. So those people, who do people at the poverty level vote for? Democrats. It's already been decided. This is what I call pandering by proxy. This is how politicians pander to the Chamber of Commerce clan, as I refer to them. They do it by chatting up Hispanic groups saying, oh, we're going to solve this problem, we're going to solve this problem, because they know if they went to the Chamber of Commerce and said, we're going to keep the borders open so that you'll get more customers, we'd chop their heads off at the polls, wouldn't we? That is what is going on. Now, You see Sheriff Joe standing tall, they're not going to, Eric Holder is not going to intimidate Sheriff Joe. In fact, from what I'm seeing, Eric Holder, I've always felt that ISA in this Fast and Furious investigation had a lot of stuff that he wasn't saying. I'm more convinced than ever now that they've got stuff. For the U.S. Attorney General to say he did not know about Fast and Furious, I'm going to tell you something. I'm the one who broke the story about Brian Terry being killed with beanbag rounds in his shotgun. I broke it on Examiner.com. While I was researching that, and we know, Glenn and I know a lot of retired Border Patrol supervisors, they're telling me, it doesn't sound right, Rick, don't publish it, you'll embarrass yourself. I had 4 confirmations that he had beanbag rounds in his shotgun. While trying to get it, I talked to a Border Patrol agent out of the Naco station at 4 o'clock the afternoon after Brian Terry was killed. He said, oh, one of those AK-47s they picked up was one of those guns the ATF was smuggling into Mexico.
Oh my God.
I'm on the phone with him. I'm going, what are you talking about, ATF smuggling guns? Are we talking about rogue agents? Oh no, it's one of the guns the ATF was smuggling into Mexico. I didn't even know what I'd been told for like 6 weeks until the story broke.
Shoot.
If a line agent in Naco who wasn't in Rio Rico or wasn't in Peck Canyon, wasn't a BORTAC member, and certainly wasn't a supervisor, knew that one of the AK-47s they picked up the night Brian Terry was killed was a Fast and Furious gun, you know damn good and well everybody up the chain of command knew it.
Yeah.
I knew it, I just didn't know what it was I knew. Now, the new era we're in, and this is where Sheriff Joe is important and where Arizona leads the country, I think we're moving into a new era of federalism in the country. The states have figured it out. The feds aren't going to enforce the law. The federal government was going to enforce immigration law. It'd be fixed by now, okay? And we're going to see more and more states, as we have, following Arizona's lead, passing their own immigration laws. Unfortunately, they're being sued by the federal government, but hopefully that'll change sometime next year. But I think not just in the area of illegal immigration, but I think in other areas too, we're entering a new area of federalism where the states are going to decide this is the way we're going to run it. And if California wants to continue to be run the way it is, it's going to go down the tubes and people can vote with their feet. And if Arizona stands tall, you'll get a lot of people moving here from California. Unfortunately, some of them will be the people who help bring California down, so you have to watch them very closely. Now, here's why the states are going to do something. The big 5 that illegal immigration affects: crime, education, healthcare, employment, and the environment. Everybody knows that. There's other issues. Those are the big 5. Employment's the most important one now. The Department of Justice 2010 Drug Threat Assessment Report. You want to look it up on the internet. Department of Justice 2010 Drug Threat Assessment Report said there were 2,500 cities in America that had a drug problem that involved Mexican drug cartels, either running the drug business or part of running the drug business. Some Asian gangs in the east that are running the area. 2,500 cities. I didn't even know there were 2,500 cities in America. That's what they said in 2010. I think they made a mistake. They realized they made a mistake by publishing that number because the Drug Threat Assessment Report for 2011, for 2011, the following year, said there were only 1,500 cities that had a problem. I mean, to me, that would be a victory. How come they're not screaming it from the rooftops, right? Everything you hear is lies about illegal immigration. Obama has deported more. No, he hasn't. I did a check on the numbers. He's taken all the removals, whatever they are, voluntary repatriations, where they volunteer to go down and just walk through the turnstile back into Mexico, actual deportations, whatever it is, those have all been mushed into one category so they can say we're deporting more people than George Bush. It's just one more lie that you're hearing. The thing that we need to do is to stand tall, and I know a lot of people, I'm getting calls, Romney's not stepping up to do the right thing, we got to attack Romney. And I said, I'm not attacking Romney, okay? We need to continue to work to inject the illegal immigration issue into this campaign so that these candidates know that we want something done about illegal immigration. I think from what I'm hearing and from internal polls and saying it's going to be a landslide for Romney in the fall. We need to let him know now that when he gets into power, we want these laws enforced. Yes. That, I think, is our goal at this point.
Amen.
So with that, I'll close. I want to thank you all for coming down here. I want to thank Glenn Spencer for being Glenn Spencer and all that he has done. Thank you, Glenn.
Thank you, Rick. I'm going to introduce a special person here in a minute, but I want to comment. As I say, I've been at this 20 years. I was immersed in this problem in California. I have so much information, which is so scary. I have so much information that shows that there are so many people in the public eye who are subversives. Obama's new campaign slogan is "Yes, we can." And he said on television the other day he got it from the Hispanic "Si se puede."
Yeah.
And they get it from Saul Alinsky.
That's right.
And I have so much material on these people who are in the public eye that proves beyond a shadow of a doubt, if the average American could see it, if the Republicans with hundreds of millions of dollars in advertising could run a few of the film clips that I've got of Antonio Villaraigosa standing in Washington, D.C. with the Mexican Army band behind him, demanding amnesty for all Mexicans in America. The Mexican Army band was entertaining the people there. It goes on and on and on. But just like in California, after Pete Wilson won, the Republican Party walked away from the issue and lost California forever. And I can prove it. But that's for another day. You know, I want to tell you something. I've known over these last 10 years working on the border somebody who was very, very special. And I want her to come up here and say a few words. Her name is Tammy Colley. She's with the Eberly Company. And I asked her, Tammy, what do you want me to say about you? She said, let me handle that. And she's an authoritative leader, manager, and I didn't have to put words in her mouth. I'll let her do it. Come on up here, Tammy.
I'm the president of Eberly Associates, and we are fundraisers. And so I just wanted to point out to you that all those flags that you have so selfishly...
Up to your lips.
I can't talk like that. So unselfishly placed on the sign there is incredible. But I want to call your attention to that every one of those flags has been in the hands of someone across America that feels just like you do. And so they signed them and they sent them back and they said, let's get these up on the border. And so we called this campaign, and Mr. Newberry is my colleague there, who actually is the creative gentleman on this account. And he decided that if they couldn't be here with us in person, that they'd be here in spirit. So it's called In Here with Spirit from the people across America. But the real thing I want to say is I want to honor Mr. Spencer today.
Somebody was asking me a question and I missed that.
That's okay. We have in our hands here a Patriot Award, and we like to present it to Glenn for 10 long years of dedication, and it's with appreciation for a decade of protecting Americans and securing our borders, 2002 through 2012, from your friends at Eberly Associates and tens of thousands of people from across America.
All right.
Something. You know, there's a blackout in the media. The only way we can survive is with Eberly and Associates each month sending out a letter to the people who support us. But they report on our progress and what we're doing when we have a new camera system, when we survey the border, when we take pictures of people entering the country illegally, when we have a new UAV, and all of that. We're surviving because we have a cadre of supporters of, what is it, about 20, 30,000 right now?
No, you actually have over 100,000.
100,000 people who have donated to American Border Patrol. But they don't get their information from the media because we're not there. They get their information from Eberly and Associates, who we've been working with almost 10 years now. So that's how we were able to survive. A direct appeal to individuals who open the letter and read it. And they say, that makes sense to me that they're doing this. There is no other organization in this part of the galaxy that I'm aware of that does what we do, that flies the border, that uses technologies, that goes down and watches what the government does. It's like when they sent the National Guard out here. Big hoopla. They sent the National Guard to the border. We went over and photographed every National Guard outpost. Every one of them was identical. Parked there was a brand new white SUV. White.
Wait.
Brand new. Next to a tent, next to some lawn chairs, and a binocular. They had no power. They had no electronics. No weapons. They had no bullets. No communications. They could not move. They could not leave that position, which everybody knew where they were, and they couldn't apprehend anybody. And yet the media are out taking pictures of these people, these poor National Guard, sitting out there doing absolutely nothing. Now, who was the only organization that went out and showed photographs of every one of them? We were. But did the media come running down? No. But the people who Eberly deals with every day or every week, a month, they send out our newsletter, they see it. And they're supporting it. So we're bypassing the media. We're bypassing. That's how we're here. And I want to thank Eberly, and I want to thank Jim and Tammy and all the great people back there, because once again, it's part of the team you don't see. Thank you so much, Tammy.
The Mexicans hide behind the word Latino when they mean Mexican. Their movement is called Aztlan, A-Z-T-L-A-N. They also call it La Reconquista, the reconquest. Mexico lies to their kids. They tell them that they own this land for 40,000 years. The only ones who owned this land for thousands of years were the American Indians. And there were people here even before the American Indians. The Mexicans owned it from 1824 to 1848. We had a war. We won it. We paid them $15 million. We overlooked $3.2 million that they owed us. And 7 years later, 1855, El Presidente Santa Anna, came to us. He had blown all $15 million that we gave him and said, if you give me another $10 million, I will give you 30,000 more acres, including square miles, including Tucson. So we never stole anything. Mexico took the land originally from Spain, who had owned it 300 years. Mexico owned it the least of everybody. They only owned it 24 years. And they talk about that this is a message saying they're getting ready to make their revolution against the United States. And I'm going to read you. It's very short. It's only 2 paragraphs. Like I say, they hide behind Latino. They're not a Latino group. They are a Mexican group. It says, Latino group claims Aztlan War in next 5 years. By Miguel Perez, August 27, 2011. Phoenix-based Nuestros Reconquistos, and he can't even speak Spanish, right? There's no word Reconquistos, it's Reconquistadores, which means our reconquerors, claims that there will be a war very similar to the Civil War fought in the next 5 years. La Raza, which means the Mexican people, and Mecha is supposed to be a social club in our schools, have already talked to Latinos in Phoenix and explained that Mexicans need to arm themselves for war. He is telling the Mexicans here to arm themselves for war. Says Nuestros Reconquistos President Manuel Longoria. Cecilia Maldonado of Chicanos Unidos, Arizona, isn't hoping for a sort of war, but believes it may be unavoidable. For generations, our people have prepared us to take back the lands of the Southwest that were stolen from our Mexican ancestors. Because of the bad economy and many racist laws, Latinos will be forced to fight sooner than later, says Mrs. Maldonado. That means it's going to be in the next 2 or 3 years. Mexican groups believe they have enough people in states such as California, Nevada, Arizona, New Mexico, and Texas to successfully wage a war on the United States. Whose side will you be on? They're not kidding.
No, they're not.
I was awakened to this after Proposition 187 passed in California. They had a big conference at the University of California at Riverside in January of 1995. Remember, the 187 passed in November of 94. And the Latinos, Mexican groups got together, and the soon-to-be head of the California Democrat Party, Art Torres, got up and said, 187 was the last gasp of white America in California. Now, this is the lead Democrat politician in the state, a state senator. 187 was the last gasp of white America in California. I was listening to this and the other things that they were saying at this conference, and I started thinking, wait a minute, this goes beyond economics.
Yeah.
This goes into a completely new arena. So I began to pay attention. And that was 95. In 1997, the president of Mexico, Zedillo, got in front of the National Council of La Raza annual convention in Chicago. And these are his exact words. I have proudly affirmed that the Mexican nation extends beyond the territory enclosed by its borders, and that Mexican migrants are a very important part of it. He just declared war on the United States. We ran ads in local papers in Los Angeles trying to point this out to people. And Barbara Cole put up a billboard in Blythe, California. They said, California, the illegal immigration state. Don't let this happen to your state. And Mario Obledo, co-founder of MALDEF, who had just won the Presidential Medal of Freedom from Bill Clinton, came out and said this: California is going to become a Hispanic state, and anyone who doesn't like it should leave. Now, this is called ethnic cleansing. This is by the co-founder of MALDEF, winner of the Presidential Medal of Freedom, a leader of the Mexican people, had just said we're going to have ethnic cleansing in California. Well, guess what? 8 years later, Hispanics, read Mexicans and their Hispanic friends, outnumber Anglos in California. And where are they going? If you look at the demographic shift, the population shift, they're moving to the desert. I grew up in Los Angeles. It's one of the most temperate climates since they got rid of smog, basically. It's wonderful. It's 74 degrees there today. It'll be 75 tomorrow. Marine layer influence, wonderful. It's a Mexican city. And where did where Americans go? Well, apparently, when Mario Obledo said if it's going to be a Hispanic state, anybody who doesn't like it should leave, and that's a direct quote, I've got it on tape. They did. They decided they didn't want to live in Mexico, so they moved to the desert, leaving behind one of the most beautiful places on the planet. And this is going on and on. And so in the year 2000, I was invited to go on the O'Reilly Factor. And never again, by the way. And I had all of these quotes in mind, and they put me up against a Mexican lawyer. I was in this little room in Los Angeles with a camera looking at me, you know. And so they started interviewing me, and it was Newt Gingrich was sitting in as the host. So this Mexican lawyer started accusing me of racism, and I said, wait a minute. Did you hear what the Mexican president said at the National Council of La Raza? And I quoted that statement. He said, how can you say these things on national television? I was quoting the president of Mexico. And he was accusing me of rabble-rousing. And I continued with these quotes. I had memorized them. I knew them very well. And so I finished the program. And I went home and I said, there's more to this. So I built a video called The Conquest of Aztlán. It sold thousands and thousands of copies. And what it is, it's my interview on the O'Reilly Factor with Newt Gingrich, right? And I give these quotes and I cut away to the live video. And I say something else and I cut away to the live statements that these people are making. Then I cut back to this guy, right? How can you say those things on national television? What do you mean? How can you not? So this is a very, very serious matter. And that's why the Southern Poverty Law Center accuses me of a vitriolic Mexican basher. But the American people have no idea what is being said on public, Spanish language television. You have no idea. I'll give you one indication. About a year and a half ago or 2 years ago, we had these big demonstrations. Did you know that they were all wearing white shirts? Remember that? They were. I watched this. They were all wearing white shirts. Now, what takes orders and wears a uniform? An army.
Army, yeah.
So these people were told, this is what you wear. This is what you do on Spanish language television. This problem is much, much bigger. I think that's why the Republican Party may be afraid of it, because they don't want to confront it. They want to kick the can down the road, as they say. Let somebody else deal with it. But it's happening. You know, they abolished Mexican studies here in Arizona, didn't they? Do you remember that?
Yeah.
And you know, in the bill that was signed by the governor of Arizona, the one thing they were told not to teach in these classes, number one, the overthrow of the government of the United States. So they were teaching the overthrow of the government of the United States in classes in Arizona.
Yeah. That makes
Now,
sense.
how can you say that? Well, why on earth would the governor of the state sign a bill passed by the assembly saying don't teach the overthrow of the government of the United States if they weren't teaching it in the first place, which they were doing?
I have the books.
And you have the book.
Send him the information.
And we have the book. But I quieted, I looked at that and I said, Glenn, they're smearing you, they're calling you every name in the book. So I just sold thousands of copies of Conquest of Aslan and came to the border. And just to focus on this, I still kept up my website. But Rick is right. If we can find a champion who will stand up for the American people, including those of Mexican descent, thank you, some of them who are here, right here, and we love them dearly. I mean that. I mean it. Then we can win the day, but not by pussyfooting around, not by being nice, not by being cute. Did you want to come up and say a few words?
Yes.
So we have
She's gonna defeat El Boycotter Grijalva.
Yes.
Now,
She's running and she needs help.
I'll let her go into the introductions, but there was a front page picture on the Sierra Vista Herald a couple years back of me pointing my nose to nose with Raul Grijalva down in the river down here. You'd have to see it. But here is the woman who's going to take that seat back for America.
Thank you.
My name is Gabriela Saucedo Mercer, and I emigrated from Mexico legally back in 1986. On July 3rd, 1991, I proudly became a naturalized citizen. On that day, I took an oath. And part of that oath says that I would fight to defend the Constitution of the United States of America against enemies, foreign and domestic. And that includes people coming across the border. And they're not just Mexicans. They're from all over the world. Right now, Mexico is being infiltrated by people from the Middle Eastern countries. What do they look like? They have brown skin. Guess what they're doing? They're infiltrating the churches. The Catholic churches are being infiltrated. And they are learning the language. Guess what they do when they speak Spanish? They come across the border pretending to be Mexicans. They're not Mexicans. They want to kill us. When I came to the United States of America, my first goal was to become a citizen. Why? Well, maybe because I married a gringo. Reason number one, I love this country. This country gave me opportunities that my native country did not give me. They're not available. When I came to America, I saw the grass was greener on the other side. It's always been greener on the other side. The opportunities are here. And I wanted to take that opportunity. It has nothing to do with my culture. I love my culture. Nobody can tell me that I'm a sold out, because I am not. I love my adopted country, and I love my culture. The Mexican-American studies. I guess I can say an authority on that, because I went to school in Mexico. They don't teach that the United States of America stole the land from Mexico. I remember my Mexican history books. The Gadsden Purchase happened. Everybody in Mexico hated El Presidente Santa Anna because he sold out. He sold out the land. But it was a treaty. It was the Gadsden Purchase. That's what governments do, right? They make treaties. Well, it happened. Get over it. Get over it. What they're doing here in Arizona, and I'm gonna tell you who started this many, many years ago. It was Raul Grijalva.
Yes.
Raul Grijalva is, when he graduated from the U of A in 1968, he was invited to a convention of Mecha in Colorado. When Grijalva came back, he discovered that he was a Chicano all of a sudden. Everybody's heard the word Chicano?
Yes.
Chicano, me growing up in Mexico, every time I heard that word was an insult, because a Chicano is a low-life Mexican American, or whatever you want to call them, that are troublemakers. I never wanted to be associated with a Chicano, so don't ever call me a Chicana, okay? It's ridiculous what they're trying to do. Now, what happened in TUSD, they have been brainwashing these children. And it's not just about Mexican Americans. I have gone to several of the TUSD meetings. They have children from all over, not just Latinos from Mexico. They're from all over. If you speak Spanish, they'll recruit you. They are black kids from Puerto Rican descent, Cuban descent. They're all taken because they can be little voices, little soldiers for this cause. And the only thing that they want is rise up and fight against the United States of America. What Glenn was talking about in LA, and if you have a pen and pencil, just write this down. There's a website, it's called CIR, Center for Immigration Reform. I know the word reform doesn't sound good to many of you, but it is a good website. And I cannot remember if it's .org or .com. Just Google Center or .org. It is .org. They have a video about some rally similar to what Glenn was talking about. They have they claim that there was 60,000 people at this rally. And there's Antonio Villaraigosa. You know who he is, right? He's the mayor of LA. He stands there with a bunch of his friends, and they're all Hispanics, Latinos, whatever you want to call them. And they have, they're rallying up, all these people, getting them excited about immigration. And they do talk about La Reconquista. But what got me was, I don't care what country you come from. And I don't care if you love the country that you came from. Like many of you, probably your grandparents came from another country, and they love their country that they came from. But when you make a pledge to be an American, you have to respect this country. Do not be flying the Mexican flag or the Puerto Rican flag, or, well, I'm sorry, not the Puerto Rican. Don't be flying any other flag from other country, because you're supposed to love this country if you are here legally. Where are your allegiance? Who are you pledging your allegiance to? At this rally, I noticed all these flags flying around from different countries, mostly South America. And they had the mariachi band on stage, and then they paused to play the national anthem. I have never heard them play the national anthem with mariachi band. It was like, oh, I felt goosebumps. What got me was the people on the stage, including Antonio Villaraigosa, they're not paying respects. Whenever I hear the national anthem, I pay my respects, because I respect this country. All of a sudden, they finish playing the national anthem, and they switch, and they start playing the Mexican national anthem, which also gives me goosebumps. I have to admit it. I mean, I grew up in Mexico. It is a beautiful anthem. It sounds beautiful, but not in this country. Take it back over there and do your pledge over there and whatever you want to do over there.
Yeah.
What these people did on stage, remember, when they were playing the national anthem, they were just being disrespectful. They didn't stand and put their hand on their heart. As soon as the Mexican anthem started playing, that's exactly what they did. And there was 3 or 4 of them. They went like this. This means brown power. Take your brown power across the border and fix that country over there.
Fix it, yeah.
Yes.
This one.
I don't know what else to say, but I guess my time is up. Thank you.
She was absolutely right. I have the videotape of that rally. It was Gutierrez standing with Antonio Villaraigosa. Gutierrez is an official with the AFL-CIO, SEIU. And when they were playing the U.S. national anthem, they were talking. And when the Mexican national anthem started up, they all turned around and their fists went in the air. I have it on videotape. I mean, it goes on, and it's deeper than anybody realizes, and we're going to be shocked when it blows up. Well, we're getting ready to say goodbye. I want to thank you all for coming down and sending the message. Save the United States, secure the border.
Yep.
Amen.
Save the United States, secure the border. Thank you very much.